Hello everyone, welcome back. KJ4YZI, Eric with HamRadioConcepts. I've been away for a little while. I've just been honestly busy at work, burned out on radio, burned out on YouTube videos. It's a full-time job, and trying to enjoy a little bit of jet ski time while the weather permits. I'm back to making videos now. I got the desk all cleaned up again, and I have things on my desk that have been here for several weeks. This is something we've seen before if you're a subscriber, maybe you're not. This is something I've seen at Dayton Hamvention 2019. It's called the MFJ-1234, the RigPi station server, which was developed by Howard Nurse W6HN and pretty much built, sold to, and marketed by MFJ. So Howard developed this as he was in years of working on servers and making servers, and he's a ham, and he thought, what a good way to make every radio capable of being operated remotely. Now, I say every, there's a little star there. Maybe there's a radio you have that doesn't work with this, but it's totally possible. This is a self-contained server station. What does that mean? That means if you want to set this right here on your desk, connect it to your internet or your router, and operate your 7300 away from home, all you'll need is this internet and it connected to your radio. That's it. No computer in between. You don't have to leave your computer running. A way to, with interfaces on the, it's built on a Raspberry Pi, and with interfaces on, each side and the front, whatever, you can transmit in and out. You can, connect your PTT. You can do audio over USB for my 7300. Cat control, connect it via Ethernet to your router or Wi-Fi. So if you don't have an Ethernet and you want to put it upstairs, great, you can do it with Wi-Fi. Being that it's a Raspberry Pi, you have an HDMI port on the front. It does require a 5-volt micro USB. It's got a built-in keyer in here that you can use it as a keyer, and you can use it to send CW remotely from your phone or tablet or desktop, just from a browser. So we're going to check this out because the last video when I was in Dayton Hamvention, Howard showed it. I did an interview. I think it was the very first video online. It looked really cool, and it seemed like a novel idea. Then a ton of people bought it, and they were impressed with it. All those people have been running with this thing for a while. Me, I haven't really touched it yet. Now it's here on my desk, so I'll look a little more as to what it takes to hook this thing up. Do you have to be a rocket scientist? Is this worth it? I can tell you that this will be really worth it for people that live in a condo, okay? I know a friend, Rick, he lives in a condo. He can't have a tower or an antenna outside. So he's got his 7300, oh, my apologies, Rick. He's got a Flex at a different house, right? With an antenna, cobweb, whatever. And he's got it set up at his buddy's house, and he operates it remotely. So let's say you don't have the money to buy a Flex. I get that. Let's say you have a 7300 like myself, or let's say you don't have a 7300. Let's say you have an old FT450 Yaesu, or an ICOM 706, or an FT950, or a 10-Tech, and you want to hook that up remotely and operate it from your phone. This is going to be the device to do it right here. A little bit of setup with this, and you will need to know a few things about maybe opening a port on your router or finding the IP of this that your router assigned. A few things, but you don't have to be a programmer for Raspberry Pi. You don't have to be an Arduino programmer. I'm not a programmer. And a lot of you guys are just way over my head when it comes to building stuff on Pi platforms and Arduino. But the manual and the producer and the builder does say easy as 1, 2, 3. So let's see, we're not going to rate it on how easy it is. I'm just going to walk you around this thing and show you how I might set it up with my 7300. And then I have a trip next week for a day. I'm going to be out of town, so I will try this when I'm out of town, and try it with my phone and try to operate HF away from home without even having my computer on. The MFJ-1234 RigPi station server. Let's check it out. So there's a couple things that, as I said, and as the manual says, where's the manual at? So the manual does state a couple things. Okay, so let me read this line to you. Basic setup and operation does not require an in-depth knowledge of Raspbian, Linux, or programming in the languages used. For some of the more advanced features and functions, some knowledge will be needed or to be learned. So there's a big knowledge base on this online. Howard himself is on these groups and these forums answering questions and posting updates. People that are getting this working are out there offering help to others. That's what it's about in this ham community. They're like, hey man, this is how I set it up for my 7300. Follow this, okay? So a couple things, knowledge of the home router and connecting to the router to find an IP address will be needed. If you've never ever looked at an IP address in your life, you may need a little bit of help. If you've never ever logged into your router at home, you may need to look that up, and that's easy. It's all public information written on the side of your router. But if you've never done it, those are the things you may need help with. The absolute noob who has never touched one of these and has never touched an IP address or even assigned one or anything should be able to figure it out with online help. The person that's played with a Raspberry Pi before, you should be okay. And myself, I forgot more than I know, so I have to learn all over again on what this guy even told me at Dayton Hamvention because I forgot it all. I'll have to watch my own video. What does this come with? Well, this is what it comes with right here. It doesn't come with much because there's so many different interfaces out there. There's so many different types of radios. There's no way they could market all those cables. Again, you go from a 10-tech to an ICOM 7300. That's a wide array of types of cables and interfaces for cat control and audio. I mean, think about it. Kenwood, Yaesu, ICOM, Alinco. I mean, so many different types of radios. So they give you this, okay? And some of the naysayers may say, well, big deal. I could build that on a Raspberry Pi for $30. Then go ahead and do it. Nobody's stopping you. The point is, this is built in a case like this, okay? It's got all the stuff marked on there, labeled and whatever, and the code and everything for the software is on the SD card inside. That's what you're paying for, convenience. You're paying for the ability to grab one of these, set it up, and away you go. You can do this. I guess it's open source. You could do that, but this is what you're going to get when you buy this unit itself. On the front, keyer speed, so you can use this as a keyer. HDMI port in the front, 5-volt power. So the 5-volt power, you must have something like 2 amps. I wouldn't go anything lower than 1.5 amps. They say 2.5 to 3 amps. I have here plugged in. This is actually a Raspberry Pi 5-volt power adapter, and this is a micro USB port. It's a 5-volt. Came with an old Raspberry Pi I sold, and they're like $5 on eBay or Amazon. I wouldn't recommend using anything like a laptop port to do this. Laptop USB port for power or an e-cigarette charger. They just don't have enough oomph behind it to power this. This is essentially a computer. So 5-volt power, make sure you have like 2 amps, you're safe. 2.5, 3, or even better. On the left side here, you have a few different, they look like 3.5 millimeter jacks. You have your IQ in for SDR radios. You have your receive in, your transmit out, your PTT, your paddle, your key. So you can plug a key directly into here or a paddle into here. Or you have your transmit out, your PTT out. So it's keying the radio from here. On this side, you have your Raspberry Pi connections. You have USB ports. You have a 8-pin RJ45 for audio, so I guess you can run right from this to the mic of your audio or the mic of your radio. If you had a straight through mic cable, you can go from here on certain instances, go from here to the mic port if the voltages are appropriate without burning up your radio, or make your own, maybe make a breakout box and go 8-pin here and make a breakout so you can do it to different radios. Also Ethernet here and Wi-Fi. It's got a built-in Wi-Fi inside, so you can connect this upstairs to your Wi-Fi router downstairs. You could put it on your nightstand next to your bed without any computer there, and as long as it's got Wi-Fi and power and your radio's next to your nightstand on your bed, because every ham sleeps with a radio next to their bed, then it'll work. The thing about this also is you can set up multiple users and multiple radios. You can set this up to operate from, again, a tablet or your phone or a desktop browser to decide which radio you want to turn on. And that's when it gets more complicated, when you want to run 4 or 5 interfaces into this thing. It can be done, but I'm looking at 1 radio at most. But you can set this up to where you can turn this one off, turn that one on, set up. Maybe you want to use your 7300 because you got 6 meters on it. Maybe you want to go right to an AM only rig, I don't know. But you can do it with this. We're not going to discuss that in this video because that's a little more in depth when we talk about the advanced features. That's the features that you're going to really need to research, is running multiple radios, 5, 6 different interfaces and trying to split audio between the USB and the audio out. One thing about this also is it is actually a computer. If you wanted to, you could abort this whole mission, pull that SD card out, put your own SD card in there and use this like a computer. I don't think you really want to do that because it's in this nice case ready for a station server, but you could do that. Another thing about this is you could actually plug a monitor here with the HDMI, use a mouse and a keyboard via USB to install other software like Mumble is one of them, which is a VoIP software. So basically if you wanted to use a 7300 like I'm going to connect, you'd put the VoIP server on here and it takes the audio and routes it out the USB as, I guess, digital to your radio. So there's no USB audio out on here. The VoIP server is handling that magic inside the software of the Raspberry Pi. So that's how I'm going to get my audio to and from my ICOM 7300 via the USB port. Now maybe you have an old radio that doesn't have USB, like a FT950 or an ICOM 706. Then you would do it another way. You'd take it out, on audio out here and go into the radio. Lots of different ways to hook this up, guys. Let's connect to this first and see about the basic overview of how it looks on a desktop browser, some of the things you're going to enter in to choose your radio, what it looks like, and how you would expect this to look when you're controlling your radio 1,000 miles from home with a browser like Firefox or Chrome. So let me log into it and show you the configuration or the utility that you would use on this station server. Now, because I was already in here playing with it, it's not in the default factory setting because I entered a couple bits of information in and boom, it saved it. So I don't know how to factory reset it to start over, but it's very simple. The first thing you need to do is find the IP address of your RigPi. Now, the manual does recommend or state you can go rigpi.local, right? And that may take you there, but sometimes on different browsers or computers, it doesn't. So before you leave a comment saying that doesn't work, what you can do is you can go to your Wi-Fi router or the device that you're connected to, and there should be, and when you log into that, there should be a device list to show everything that's connected to your router. In my device list, it shows me different things on Ethernet ports and Wi-Fi and their username or their ID and all that. I can go down here and see that in Ethernet port 3, here is my rigpi.local, and there's the IP address right here. There's various different ways of finding what's connected to your router. This is one way, is to go into your router and see what's connected to it. We're going to take this IP and go right into here like this. Okay, and that should take me right to the RigPi station server built-in interface. The first time, default, your sign-in is going to be admin for username with no password, and click sign in. Now, once you first turn on this unit and sign in, it's not going to look like this. This is because I already put a couple bits of information in. What it'll kind of look like is this, and I'll show you all this in a second. But here, it'll look like this. Let's go to, like this, add. So you're going to screen something like this, and it'll ask you, put in your call sign, right here. Put in a username, if you want to put a password. And you don't have to put all this information in, but this is for the built-in logbook that's in here. So this thing will automatically configure with a log also for all your information here. You don't have to put in your city and state and zip code and street address, but once you just fill in this basic information, you're going to get another screen that will allow you to set up your radio like this. And it'll ask you, what kind of radio do you have? You have a Linko, do you have an ICOM or a Ten-Tech? And what model, do you, like if I go here, we go to, for instance, let's go to Yaesu, and then let's say you have a FT450, right? So FT450, I would click that, and I would name it what I want. And, the baud rate, the CIV address or whatever. Sometimes the default settings are the best. And then you can save that as a radio. So if you have multiple radios, you can save all those in here. But we're not going to save all that because I already have one set up for my ICOM. So we'll just go right back to Tuner. And once you set it up, this is what you're going to get. This is the web interface, not the app. But you can see right here that this kind of resembles all the controls, on the front of a radio. I mean, not the way it's laid out, but you have your frequency readout on the screen here. You have your knob that you can adjust frequency, your PTT, your S meter here, and some other stuff in here like different bands. You want to go 60 meters, 20 meters, the different modes. You can change it all right here. You can operate your entire radio right here on a web interface without having to be in front of the radio. There's other ways of doing it, and there's other features of this. This is not just for operating a radio. I mean, there's a logging feature in here that you can log everything and have it automatically send right to your logbook. You can send spots. You can have spots show up here on your screen. So you can see frequencies and call signs of people that are going to the DX cluster or spotter network to see where the action is. Also a keyer for, this is really cool, a keyer for CW. So I myself really want to learn CW, and I've said this in previous videos in the past. I learned it, I forgot it, I tried to learn it, I screwed up the way I learned it, I taught myself, I forgot it. You can do it right here with typing it in, right? So you can go like this, CQ, this is KJ4YZI, Echo Lima 97, and it's going to send to the RigPi. I mean, that's pretty cool. You could lower the speed like this, 10 words a minute, 15 words a minute, tune for if you're wanting to find, the zero beat or wherever the person is at that frequency. Different macros here for different things. I mean, if you want to do a macro like this, you can, W1AW, this is KJ4YZI. I mean, really cool stuff. My call, stuff like that. Different macros you could set up in here. So if you're wanting to really get some contacts on CW, this actually will work to send CW from a keyboard to another station. And it'll decode, on the way back, it'll decode what you're hearing. So that's really neat. I mean, for those who, try to get the effort to learn the CW. I mean, I really wish everybody was out there with a paddle or a key, but I know some people just don't want to. They just want to try it. Or maybe this gives you the ambition to say, wow, I really like the way this sounds, CW, talking to people with dots and dashes. Now I want to learn how to pound that brass. Well, you can do that. So a lot of other things on here, you could automatically look up a station like this. Then you could type in KJ4YZI, and boom, right here in the same browser, you could, look, here's all my information right here. Boom, pulls up, So I'm talking to, let's say I'm talking to somebody here, right? And I'm talking into my mic, I'm PTT, and he's like, yeah, well, my call is WB4HIS. Okay, very cool. So we go like this, WB4HIS, and there's Joe, and tells me his information. And then boom, I could enter that information into my log, right here, WB4HIS, it puts his information in when you have it all set up, and voila, right there it is. So really neat stuff. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get this configured now because I really haven't configured this. I started playing with it to show you in the video. Let me get the radio fired up, turned on, and I'll actually see what happens if we can capture this on a mic or whatever. And then I'll show you now also on the app, because some people want to do this portable on a bus ride from, I don't know, Delaware to California. They're on a bus ride across the, because everybody wants to ride a Greyhound bus across the country with a phone in their hand working HF. I mean, that's how it happens. So let's see what happens. Here is the web interface. This is directly on a browser through an IP address to the RigPi. My 7300 is connected. You can see I can go to 15 meters, 80 meters. I can also tune on the radio, and you can see it moving right here. Okay. You have the control up here. Nice if you have a tablet where you'd be able to use this as the VFO. PTT. Some other buttons down here. Macros you could program, different modes and everything. Pretty straightforward on the actual web interface. Now, I tried getting the audio connected, but then it came on, and with the mic I'm talking into and the speakers, it was looping and echoing and squealing. So you have to, because the audio is not coming out of the radio without, basically the RigPi is making the VoIP server in and out for audio. So you have to have that VoIP client on your computer as well, the Mumble client. And basically, it's like a Skype session. It's connecting your RigPi and your computer together as a voice chat room. And then it's taking the audio from the 7300 and passing it through here. So that runs in the background, and then you can manipulate the radio here and talk. It runs in the background. So this is the way it is on the web interface. So I have this on my iPhone just using a web browser, Safari, to connect to my radio, and using the Mumble server. I had to download Mumble app free in my phone, and Mumble already comes on the RigPi itself. I'm local on Wi-Fi right now, but you can do this away from home as long as you have a wide area network's IP address, your public IP address, to connect remotely. But I'm on Wi-Fi right now, and you can see, if you can see on my 7300, I could change the frequency. Watch this. Okay. Changing the frequency, or I can go down here. Whoop, let's transmit. I can go down here and go to 80 meters, and go to 40 meters. I'm doing it all from the phone here. We'll go back to 20. Okay, and find that station I hear. You can simply tap on, for the step size, if you wanted to change it here. Okay. Like this. Okay. And so I can pretty much, you can hear, see if you can hear the audio. It's a little low. I have to adjust the settings and turn it up. See if I find a station here. I'll use my icon to find the station using the scope. Here, listen. See, that's coming from the phone. Gotta adjust the audio settings to make it a lot louder in here. But this is not using any app at all, other than, you can see here I have downloaded Mumble. So Mumble is basically seeing my RigPi as a VoIP server, and it's connecting to it. And the little lips here tell you when I'm talking it lights up, or when it hears something from the RigPi it lights up. So basically you can see, as I'm talking, the lips change colors. But anyways, so we'll go out of here, go back to the browser, and there it is, PTT. Alright, so we'll adjust the settings. But there's also another way of doing this if you wanted to use the Comcat app. Now, let me disconnect this so we could hear, huh? Okay. The Comcat app is also developed by the same person, and it kind of looks like this. The thing about the Comcat app is it has built-in VoIP server, so you don't have to use the Mumble, but it's a little more difficult to get it working, I think. It looks a lot better as an app for a radio, with more little buttons without having to scroll or whatever, but it's a little bit difficult. The way doing it over a web browser doesn't require any subscriptions, doesn't require any buying software or anything. Just doing it on a browser, it's that easy. It'll run in the background once you get it set on a frequency to where you can, browse the web while you're listening to it also. But you do need the PTT button there, okay, to operate. Or you can set it up as voice-operated transmit. But if you're talking in a car or something, or in a hotel room, it's going to hear it and constantly key your radio at home. So that's operating it remotely, just using a cell phone over a web browser on Firefox or Safari or whatever. Again, I'm using it local on Wi-Fi with my local LAN address, but you can do it remotely through your wide area network address. Another way to connect to this device, instead of having a monitor with an HDMI port and an extra keyboard and mouse, if you wanted to connect to this to do any configuring on the RigPi itself, other than what you can do in the dashboard, you can VNC into it. You just get a free VNC Viewer, free to download online. Type in the IP address of the device if you're on the local area network or the wide area network, and connect to it. The default username is Pi, and the password is 7388 by default. This should take you right into the, right here. This is right into the desktop of the Raspberry Pi. You can see you have a little start menu here. You have a browser, all that stuff. But now you can configure the mumble, and I'm not sure why this popped up this big zoomed in like this. It was smaller before. I must have changed something. But now you can connect, go to configure and change the settings of the mumble app for audio input and output. Like I said, fitting the screen better would give you all the options on one screen, but it's zoomed in. But anyways, VNC Viewer is just another way of doing it. Type in the IP address locally if you're on a local area network, 192.168 or whatever, and then if you're public, you type in your public IP from 1,000 miles away, and you can manipulate settings from it without having to be right in front of the thing. Really neat stuff, this RigPi, to enable you to stay on HF when you're away from home, if with something with a smartphone or a tablet or even a desktop computer, to connect remotely to a computer that doesn't have fancy USB ports like a 7300. So imagine this. Here's a scenario. Imagine that you're hanging out with some people, good friends of yours, or you're away from home for a week and you really want to show them what ham radio is about. Let's say you're not going to bring all your radio and the antenna and set it up in a parking lot. You can give them an idea and say, listen, I can show you what people sound like remotely with my smartphone. And you can dial it up and show them, or like I said, you can sit in a hotel room like I might do next week and try it out and see how it works, stay in contact without having to bring all my radios. Believe me, back in the day when I worked at AT&T, I took a couple trips that were like 2 or 3 weeks long, and I had my FT450, I had a Delta Loop, somewhat of a Delta Loop, in my hotel room, strung all over the walls, and one day I forgot to put the do not hang or do not disturb sign. And the people must have went in there and thought I was a terrorist. I mean, there was radios set up, microphones, having a laptop open, I had wires strung to the ceiling and the floor and the window, trying to get it out the little hole next to the AC, and people probably thought I was nuts. But I could eliminate doing all that with having something like this. So check out the RigPi, the MFJ-1234, a big support group online for this. I've already had to check into a couple of things. I did get an email from the creator as I asked him a question on the help forum or the help group. I said, hey, I got a question with this. I'm having trouble setting this up. He actually responded with help and got me running. It was the audio portion, getting it back and forth. So really neat stuff. And I'm glad I got to see it on my desk because people asked, well, what about the interfaces and connecting it to a radio? You didn't show us that at Dayton. You're right, I didn't. So hopefully you saw some of it now. Check out the links in my description and it'll take you to the help sources and where you can buy this and more. 7-3 guys, thanks for watching. More videos on the way. KJ4YZI.